So folks, Chris is a serial entrepreneur and at heart, and he's been a published author twice now, and a keynote speaker and an adjunct professor with a deep passion for digital marketing. With over 20 years in the marketing industry, Chris has had the privilege of helping hundreds of businesses, including his own, to thrive by enhancing digital marketing. His approach has always been about helping businesses shine and in their uniqueness and steering them away from the mundane into the spotlight. So this is something that in today's digital marketing, a well-crafted strategy, content strategy, isn't just beneficial, it's essential and is likely your missing link. So Chris, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your presence. Chris is going to guide you through the essentials of marketing strategy while making it easy and fun again. He'll also tackle the challenges of creating impactful content, discover the content format from a detailed long form and engaging short form, and master the balance between documenting and creating fresh content. And that seems to be very much a topic that we really want to talk about today, Chris. Chris, before you start though, I just really want to thank you because this is such an important topic. And having heard you before, I'm really thrilled that you're going to be presenting again.
Well, thanks for having me. This is such a great event, and I recall being here last year.
Yeah.
So many great speakers. I think Ben and I were back to back again last year. Okay. So it's kind of pure coincidence that happened again. And I enjoyed catching the tail end of that one. So this is a fun topic for me. I always get maybe a little worried that people are going to get offended that I'm calling their marketing crappy or sucky. But at the end of the day, most of people's marketing is mediocre at best. And I've been reading some books lately, and it seems like regardless of the business you're in, the industry, whether you're a startup, B2B, B2C, your mom and pop shop, or you're a big corporation, most businesses struggle with marketing. Or if you're struggling with sales, almost everything comes back to marketing, positioning, social media, really getting people aware of who you are, what you do, but also to understand what you offer, the solution you offer. And so to me, I think if we can get our arms around good, solid marketing, not mediocre marketing, not crappy marketing, we do have an advantage. And so I'm going to show you hopefully how to make it very easy today. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I like to ask this question when I'm on stage, which is, who would like to make marketing easy? And it's very much a rhetorical question. But at the same time, if you're raising your hand and you're saying, well, yeah, well, let's also make it fun. Because I think when things are easy, they're fun. And so much in my entrepreneurial journey, the things that were hard, I was making it harder than what it really is. The burnout that I was experiencing was all my fault. The reason that I wasn't generating results on social media or was trying to do too much is because a lot of things I'm going to get to in the next coming slides. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But you had a nice introduction, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. But the one thing I like to say when I talk about my background is over my 20-year marketing journey, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of things wrong. And so when I talk to people about what to do, I so often tell them, look, I've done everything. I've tried everything. As a fearless leader, I'm an early adapter. I can tell you firsthand what doesn't work. And I was putting together a bio for another event I'm speaking at, and I kind of just did a couple rough estimations, and I've posted on behalf of myself, my businesses, and my clients close to 10,000 times. I've posted close to 1,000 vertical videos, the Reels, TikToks, things like that in the last couple of years. And so I can tell you firsthand what's for real and what's not. And it's not that I've gone viral or amassed 1 million viewers, but I can see the trends firsthand. And I'm excited to share that with you because I've used my businesses and my profiles as a guinea pig to not only learn because my clients expect that, but also to stand up. So I'm curious if you're watching this today, or maybe you're watching a rerun of it. The question is, how many of you have a strategy? And I'm not talking about the plan that's in your head. I'm not talking about the plan that you had 5 years ago. I'm talking about your 2024 marketing strategy. And is it in document form? Because if you don't have it in document form, it's not a real strategy. Typically, when I speak on stage, I ask this question, and I've got this in-person marketing summit that I founded here locally, get about 200 plus people that attend. And I'm not kidding when I say that maybe 10 hands go up, and people acknowledging that they have a strategy. And then I say, well, keep your hands up if you have it in document form. Because if it's not a real document, it's not a real strategy, right? And then maybe 6 or 7 hands are still up. And so it's crazy to me how many people don't have one, but more important, how many people are expecting any kind of results, traction, engagement, growth, sales even, God forbid, without a plan. So how many professional sports coaches or youth sports coaches go into a game blindly with no plan, no strategy, and it could just be based on your own team, and then expect something in return? If you go into the battlefront and you don't have a plan, if anything, you should just expect failure, mediocrity at best. And so that is really where a lot of this conversation all comes back to is, why is it that we struggle to see results so often from our social media and our marketing? Well, if you haven't already put 2 and 2 together, a big part of that is because you don't have a strategy. And again, a content calendar, not a strategy. A audit, not a strategy. Maybe a list of guidelines and suggestions from maybe a consultant, not a strategy. All things are helpful, no doubt, but if you run a business without a plan, or you coach a team without a plan, again, what are those expectations, or what should they be? And I would venture to say not very high. So often we start talking about, okay, Chris, I got it. I'm with you. I'm on board. I'm going to make a strategy. Okay. Awesome. Then we're in the right place here today. But my goal with any of this is just, I want to make it easy. I'm not going to make this complicated or time consuming, because I don't think marketing has to be time consuming, expensive, or difficult to be effective. So hopefully I've demystified it or debunked any excuses you might be thinking about. So let's get to kind of the nitty gritty here, that we got past that, which is the light switch theory. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of different reasons why, in addition to the strategy, that you've probably not seen the level of results you want. So often, marketers and entrepreneurs like me, we react based on a need. So I call that reactionary marketing. It'd be no different than me getting home late at night and I can't see anything. So I got to flip the switch to turn the lights on. Well, you can't do that in your marketing or in your business. You can't wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm really sick and tired of not generating 6 figures, or not hitting the goals that I wanted to every year. And then going into your office, flipping the switch and say, that's it, it's over. I'm finally going to hit that goal. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Success in marketing or business does not work like that. We need to be strategic, which means if we're strategic, every action that we're doing maps to that plan, that roadmap. And so I want you to get over the thought of there's a silver bullet or there's a magic trick. There's none of that today. And there's none of that ever in success, because there is no overnight success. There's no light switch you can flip to magically generate results. And so I want to get you to be not reactive, but proactive. And being proactive is being strategic. So very important that you have that mindset going into everything else today, not just with my presentation or my part, but I'm guessing almost every other speaker you're going to hear from in this amazing event the same way. We got to be proactive rather than being reactive. And as part of that, this is the thing that probably frustrates me the most in this industry, well, in business too, when I talk to people. I've got a lot. Fortunately, I speak a lot on stage, both virtually and in person. And I like to ask people, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Or why haven't you seen success? I try to get them to identify if they have the answer. And the answer is always something like this. Well, Chris, I tried it, but. So the classic example goes something like this. Yeah, we tried TikTok. We posted 2 videos. It didn't work. Or, I heard you with the Facebook ad thing. We did that a couple times. It didn't work for us. Or, the cold outreach thing that you mentioned, like a DM strategy. Yeah, we did that once. It just wasn't for us. Or we're B2B. That won't work in our industry. And I'll say, okay, tell me more. And it's like, well, we posted 2 videos on TikTok. It didn't work. Well, what were you expecting? Expecting like $1 million in revenue or something? Well, no, but okay, the sample size wasn't there. you ran a Facebook ad for 2 days and you spent $30. The sample size and the budget size wasn't there to tell you if that works or not. So we can't dip our toe in the pool and say, oh, no, this doesn't work. It's not going to work in my industry. Believe me, good marketing is good marketing, and marketing works, and it works really, really well if you do it strategically and do it correctly. So let's make sure that we have the budget, we have the time, we have a good sample size. But if you have a good sample size and you're strategic, I think this stuff will work pretty well for you. Now, again, I alluded to this, but I want to touch on it. So often our budget is not sufficient enough. And in today's world, you have to advertise. It is some people see it as a necessary evil. That's one of my non-negotiables if you want to be successful in digital marketing. And so oftentimes people talk about what they spend. And the minimum on Facebook is $5 per day. That is the bare minimum you can spend. And whether you spend 5 or 10 for 3 days or 5 days, that is almost the equivalent of going out in the woods and saying, I've got $1,000 free masterclass for everybody. Don't expect anything because nobody's in the woods. Nobody's going to hear you except for the squirrels and the deer. So we need to have a good budget. And unfortunately, we don't have time to get into what a good budget is, but maybe it's $20 a day for 14 days. The idea scares us because social media has always been free. But in truth be told, a billboard minimum $1,500 a month, a TV ad minimum couple $100. So if you would ever consider putting that kind of money in traditional advertising, why are we so afraid to put it into social media? Especially when we know that's where everybody is. Even when they're driving their car, people are still on their phone. I don't condone that, as scary as that may be. Yeah. But boy, do I see a lot of that on the road today. So if so far I have your interest and you say, I kind of like what this guy has to say, we're going to have to jump in the deep end. There's no more toe dipping. There's no more, I'm going to try the water. If I'm on vacation, I'm in Florida, I'm jumping in the pool. I'm not going to say, I don't know, that's the water. I'm going for a swim. There's no dipping my toe. Let's just jump in and go for a swim. And I'm not talking about a lap. I'm talking about we're going to go for a real swim here. And that is a big part, I think, the mindset shift that we need going into this. So let's talk about a few more reasons why your marketing might suck. Number one, your content is average. At best, it's average. And I like to give you a really good juxtaposition here because I think it's important because most people don't see it this way. They really don't. They have their blinders on and they just don't understand what really high quality content is to average or below average. So if you're looking at these photos already, you're probably wondering, Chris, I don't get it. Well, the photo on the left is a stock photo that I found on Pexels, a royalty-free photo site. Now, you look at that and you say, okay, what's the big deal? Well, it's average. I'm not going on my way to eat that cheeseburger. Hopefully you like cheeseburgers. I do. That is what I would expect from either fast food or a theme park. Overpriced, average, nothing to get excited about, not going on my way to get it. The photo on the right was taken by a professional photographer I know at a local new restaurant that makes it's a double smash Wagyu burger with an over medium egg. That screams me. I love that. I will go out of my way to get that. It is overpriced, but it is amazing. It is a fantastic burger. Now, that to me is above average. That's a premium photo, and people eat with their eyes online. So if I see that at the right time of day, maybe on a Thursday night, and my wife and I are talking about going out to eat, that is going to make me want to go there. Whereas the photo on the left is going to make me want to go somewhere else. So what we don't realize is that average competition sends a message sometimes and says, yeah, you know what? Let's go out to eat, but let's go somewhere else. Your crappy content could be giving more business to someone else because it says, yeah, we do need that accounting software, but we're certainly not going to buy it from these guys because they don't look like a very reputable company. So what does your content say about your company or your business? That's a question you need to be asking yourself. Mm-hmm. And I talked about stock photos, but I want to use myself as an example. I like to always pick on myself because it's easy to do. I have a personal website. That's iamchrisburns.com. I created the website out of a necessity because I've a couple years ago doubled down on wanting to be a public speaker and wanting to just share my knowledge with the world. It's something I really enjoy doing, and it's tremendously helped my business. So I created the website, and I didn't have a lot of up-to-date photos of me. I've had a few that were snapped on cell phones that weren't high quality. And someone said to me, they're like, Chris, why are you using stock photos on your website? And I said, I know. It's one of my non-negotiables. I told myself I wouldn't do it. And someone said to me, they're like, no one's going to hire you if it's not photos of you because it doesn't look like you're a real speaker. And I said, okay. I went back to a time on the right where I was buzzing my head for a long time. I had little kids and I'm like, I'm just going to buzz my head. And I'm like, well, I don't really look like that as much. I look a little different now. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to gather photos. I'm going to go out of my way. I'm going to be my biggest advocate. And I'm going to make sure I have content. And so I did it. And the photo on the left says, is this a fly-by-night guy? Is this a want-to-be? Or is this a real public speaker? And so what do people want to see? They want to see you. They want to see your business, your clients, your facility, your office, whatever it is. But you have to know what they want. And you also have to ask yourself, does it look realistic? Does this look believable and professional? Don't use stock photos. They feel very cold, very sterile, and they don't represent your business. And this is, what's the first impression? When you see these, rhetorical question, obviously, what is your first impression? And I typically ask people, and it's like cheesy, posed, not real, or not diverse, or dated. Do you want your business to be associated with those terms? Because I sure as hell do not. And I'm guessing you don't as well. And so we have to just get away. Now, you could argue, well, I have this or I have that. Brand new business just started. Okay, for a couple weeks, I'll let you get away with that. But I don't have any customers, Chris. Ask your neighbor, your sister, your family member to come over and pose to be a customer for a photo in your home office. Yeah. I have a home office, not super fancy, but at least people can see, oh, that I can visualize working with this person. It's just, I don't want to associate myself with any of these terms or feelings because you do want to evoke a feeling or an emotion with your marketing. This doesn't do it. Yeah. The next one that, oh boy, do I love the debates with this one. Because people start saying, well, Chris, isn't social media for selling? No, it's not. It's the last place you want to sell people. And the question that I always ask people is, do you enjoy advertisements? Do you enjoy being sold to? Do you consume more ads on social media than you do posts from your friends and family? Well, no, but you know, how do I create sales, Chris? Well, you don't create sales because you're too focused on selling. And by the way, that's spammy. Nobody wants to hear it because it's true. And the truth hurts sometimes. And I've been there. But I can tell you that if you go through my social media, I'm not kidding. 95% of everything I've posted probably in the last decade is not salesy. I rarely talk about my service. I do sell my book, but my book, one thing you have to understand, and I'm sure Ben would appreciate this, is most of us make about $5 on our book. I'm not selling it to make money. I'm honestly really selling it to help people. So outside of that one thing, like I make zero money from my podcast, nor do I want to. It's there to help and educate people. And if I've added so much value to their newsfeed or to their day as a byproduct, when they have a need to hire a marketing coach like me, they can say, oh, I'm going to reach out to that Chris guy. He's not salesy. He's not spammy. He's very trustworthy. He's super passionate and educational about, you know, what he does. And if you have that approach, people want to buy from you. So it's selling by indirectly selling. But if you use social media as a tool to sell, you look desperate. You end up being like GoDaddy or HelloFresh, or it's like, I'm just going to unfollow them. I'm going to actually block them from sending me emails because every email is about a discount or a promotion. That is white noise, and it's a great way to get tuned out. So if you are desperate, run an ad, but do not put that in your organic content. It just it will not help you grow. In fact, it might help you go in the opposite direction. Yeah. Next, I often see a lack of listening. I want to work with you. What do you think? Did you look at my social media? Yeah, I did. And the first thing I want to know is, why aren't you responding to comments? That is like practical gold on social media. People would love to have that, and you're not responding to the questions or the messages. You're taking 3 or 4 days. And by then, if I want to stop at your fast food restaurant and you send a message about, you know, maybe having gluten-free buns at 3 p.m., and I get back to you 3 days later, do you think maybe they got their dinner somewhere else? Because I think they probably did. And the same thing is true with marketing coaches. People want the answers now. So if they say, hey, Chris, what's the cancellation policy? I didn't see it on your site. And I respond 5 days later, I'm guessing they already hired someone else. People aren't waiting for me. I'm not special. I like to think I'm a little special, but there's a lot of marketing coaches. So why wait 5 days when they can hire someone else in a matter of a few minutes? We have to listen. We have to ask questions. We have to engage, because if you don't, you won't know what they want. And if you don't know what they want or what they want to engage with, you're just talking at them, not with them. And sales is built on relationships. Social media is built on relationships. If you cultivate more relationships, you cultivate more engagement. More engagement means more sales. It's kind of that simple, But you have to listen and you have to engage. Now, as we get kind of toward the tail end of the excuses and the things we want to move past, you have to have realistic expectations. I tell people, and I put this in all of my contracts, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. If you're not willing to give me 3 months at bare minimum, I actually want 4 or 5, to be honest, probably 6. I can't, even with a big budget, I can't get you to where you want to be in 3 months. I can't get you there in 6 months, if I'm being honest. And I can't make any guarantees, nor should anyone else in this business, because it's too unpredictable. But what I can tell you is that if you follow a lot of the stuff I'm giving you and you are patient, just slow, steady growth, if you can be okay with that, you're going to crush it. You're going to have really good results. But what I see is that people give up right before they start to hit it. And they give up too soon because they're not patient. They're thinking that there's a silver bullet. They're thinking they're 1 or 2 tactics away from striking gold. But as I've said, I mentioned early on, I've posted nearly 1,000 short form videos on TikTok and YouTube in the last 18 months. I've had some reach 20,000 views. I really haven't gone viral. I mean, that's viral for me, but I don't have more than 500 subscribers on YouTube. It hasn't translated to a lot of business, but we can just feel it. We're getting so close. We're getting so close to really reaching that next threshold that I'm going to keep doing it. I know this could take years, and that's okay. I'm young enough. I've got plenty of patience to be here because I know that's what it takes. And if I'm not willing to put the money behind boosting this content, I know I have to be ultra patient. The next one, this piggybacks along with the last one, which is you have to be consistent. I see a lot of peaks and valleys in posting. I see a lot of peaks and valleys in posting a lot or commenting a lot, and then they don't for 2 weeks. And, that does send some red flags. But also, believe it or not, the platforms all have a very robust algorithm. And one of the criteria they look at when they think about ranking your content or showing it to more people is they actually reward profiles that are more consistent with more reach and engagement. So if they show it to more people, you get more engagement. If they show it to less people, less engagement, less traffic, yada, yada, yada.
And Chris, I'll tell you, I've been guilty of that one in the past at times. And you're right. It just crashes the engagement and everything.
Yeah. And, you can use a content calendar, which is what the photo on the right is. There are a lot of tools that can help you get past the inconsistency. But a lot of that has to do with time allocation or time blocking with your calendar. There's a lot of ways you can get really strategic with getting the content created once or twice a month and then scheduling it all out. This can be really easy, but it only is easy with a strategic approach. And that's kind of where we're going to get in the second half of this presentation. So where I'm getting at with all of this before I get into my strategy section of this is we have to stop with all these excuses. We have to have an abundance mindset here. And none of us are perfect, nor do I want you to create perfect content because I don't think that exists. But these are all things we can control, including our mindset. And I don't think any of this is terribly time consuming. I don't think any of this is terribly expensive. In fact, I'd argue so far, hopefully, it's all been pretty easy and simple. So what I'm going to show you, I think there's really no excuse not to do this stuff. If you really want it, you will make the time to do it. And it's really more about reallocating your time, not allocating more time, not allocating more budget. It's, do we take the budget we have and the time we have and repurpose it into things that are more effective? So I'm never going to tell you spend more time, spend more money. I'm going to tell you that let's repurpose our time into things that are going to be effective for you. And this is going to help you hit the easy button. So let's make it easy, simple, eliminate the fluff. So when I create a strategy, I'm not talking about a 10-page document or even a 4-page document. Let's just get it down to exactly and only the things that are going to help you inch forward. So no arbitrary made up goals. We have to have an advertising budget, as I mentioned. We're going to have some very realistic expectations. So I don't want you setting goals that are far beyond what you can achieve or maybe too low even. But we have to commit some time to consistency. And if you do this, it's going to be fun and easy. You won't have any excuses to make because hopefully I've debunked them all already.
Did a pretty good job of that, Chris.
Okay, so this is a transition, just a very brief call to action. This book will be, and I love this spelling error there, 29th THTH. I just updated the date on that to push it out a week. This is my second book. It is done. It's just waiting on a couple last edits, and it's in the approval process on Amazon. If you click the QR code, you can get the pre-sale now. It's $14.99. This is my complete marketing manifesto. It's everything that's in my brain about marketing in a way to make it fun, simple, and easy. And so I'd be honored if you'd be interested. Really only make a couple bucks from it, but happy to share that QR code again a little bit later.
Yeah, do that, Chris, because I think it's so helpful to have that, for people to have that kind of access.
Thank you. So the next portion is about creating a strategy. And when I wrote my first book about a totally different topic, mostly about mindset, I recognized that as I was doing it, I was creating my own recipe. And I realized that the recipe for my success looked a lot different than the person next to me or any other person in the world. And what that all told me was, you know what? There's really no right or wrong answer here. It all depends, which people hate that answer. But the best example I could give you is this. If you travel the world today and you ask people, hey, what's your recipe for chili? You're literally going to get tens of thousands of variations because, as you can imagine, there's white chicken chili, there's chili with beef tips, there's chili with ground beef, there's, anything. Vegan, vegetarian, spicy, not spicy, noodles, no noodles, and so many other variations of ingredients in between. So what is the right recipe? Well, it kind of depends on your heritage, your culture, what you have in the pantry, who you're cooking for, the utensils, the ingredients you might have in the fridge. So that's a lot of variables. Marketing's no different. There's a lot of ingredients, a lot of utensils, and it depends. If I have an hour, I might make it a little bit differently. If I have all day, I might put my heart and soul into it and, put a couple different meats in there. I'm cooking it for my kids. It's going to look a lot different too. So when I talk about this, there's no secret sauce, but the secret sauce is the recipe. I know it's very counterintuitive. What's your secret sauce, Chris? It's having a very robust strategy. Well, that's not you're looking for one trick, and that's not going to get you there. The trick is this. It's the recipe, which is interchangeable for the word strategy. And that's when I talk about this, that's what I mean. Now, there's 11-ish ingredients. Didn't look very good when I put 11-ish, so I deleted that part. But I say 11-ish because not all of them are my non-negotiables. Really, the ones in black are mostly the non-negotiables. The implementation plan is kind of a part of the content calendar. It could be, or it could be separate. And there are some things you don't have to do, but there are some bonuses or add-ons as well that can help as an accelerator or cheat code, if you will. Now, again, you might be looking at this and you say, well, Chris, we've already got our goals. We've got this. Okay, fine. Take from it what you need to help you get there to build this strategy out. So you may not like it all, and some of this stuff may not be for you, but I'd argue it's all for you in some capacity. And we're going to touch on each of these things. For the most part, there's a few we don't have time for. But I like to ask this because I do workshops exclusively on strategy. I ask people so often, hey, what's the first step? And they said, well, create a template. I said, no, what's the first step? Well, probably want to look at your analytics. No. Well, what else? And I ask questions and I keep saying, no. And I said, well, the first step is actually to create a very deep audit. And what are you talking about? And I'm not obviously talking about taxes or business. I'm talking about auditing yourself, auditing your business, and auditing the competitive landscape. So when I do this and I get paid a fairly handsome amount for this, I tell my clients the first thing I'm going to do, and you're only going to work with me if you're willing to do this first, is I'm going to give you a very deep, in fact, the audit template is probably 10 times longer than the strategy template, because I want to point out what's working, what's not, what could be improved upon, what the competition is doing, and not so much let's look over our shoulder here, but more from the lens of this is how you stack up in the marketplace. You're competitive, but here are some really awesome ideas some companies are doing that you could do. But by the way, you could do it better with your branding and your team. And then we look at social listening. Are you listening? Are you paying attention? Are you engaging? How much time do you have? Because if you don't have a lot of time, your goals shouldn't be that high. Are your profiles optimized? Do you have up-to-date hours of operation? Do you have an email address people can contact you? Do you have a button directing people to your website? What does the traffic look like currently? Because by the way, if you're going to tell me, Chris, we want 10% more web traffic this year, what is it based on? Most of the time, it's not based on anything. Are you responding to reviews? What's your engagement rates look like? And I could go on and on and on. This is a very long, extensive list. And the result of all this basically is a recommendation and an action plan. So it acts as a part of your strategy in many ways. And I probably wouldn't do this, but maybe once a year at best, because things don't change that much from year to year, especially if you have a small budget and small team. And maybe you don't have a very large digital footprint. But I look at every element: Google My Business, website, social media, and on and on and on, review sites, because that tells us everything we need to know. Are you doing a good job, a bad job, or is it good, but we've got all these different things we could be doing? And it's overwhelming, no doubt. But that's what helps us get to some of the next stages. So I ask people before I make it, I said, what is your vision? So I had a gentleman that I work with not too long ago, and he makes about $750,000 a year from his show / podcast. And he's hit a ceiling. He's a one-man band, one-man operation, tremendous business. He's gotten all this way without a strategy and without a vision. And I said to him, what do you want to achieve this year? And he gave me this blank stare. And he just kind of scanned the room like this. It's like looking at the wall, looking down. And if it was 30 seconds, it felt like 10 minutes. And I said, Jim, do you know what you want? He says, well, yeah, I guess. I said, well, what do you mean you guess? He's like, well, I want more downloads. I want more business. I'd like to have more sponsors. And I said, are you making that up? He's like, well, no. I said, well, you couldn't tell me precisely what you wanted. I said, what about for your personal life? What do you want to achieve for you and your family? Well, same kind of thing. And I said, you don't know what you want. You don't have a vision. And he literally looked like he was going to be in tears. And the response was, I guess you're right. I don't. And I said, if you don't have a vision, where are you going? And if you don't know where you're going, you're essentially in the hamster wheel in life, in business, leadership, marketing, whatever. So you have to be able to, in your marketing strategy template, you have to be able to indicate, where is it we're going this year? What do you want specifically? And this requires a little bit longer conversation, but I want you to be crystal clear. Because if it's clear what you want, it should be pretty clear to your followers what you're offering and what you do. Because unfortunately, it's not very clear for a lot of businesses. But it could look a little something like this. This is a sample vision statement. I made this for the agency that I used to run before I transitioned it into a coaching business. And it's to proactively leverage digital marketing platforms to drive business growth. We'll be creating compelling content, shareable content to foster authentic connections with our target audience and establish ourselves as industry thought leaders, which is what we do, or what I do. By engaging in strategic social media campaigns, you can hold me accountable to that. Implementing data-driven tactics, leveraging emerging trends, we aim to increase brand awareness. I could go on and on, but I think everyone's capable of reading that. And these are the social media platforms we're going to be on. This is really just a promise. This is what we're going to try to achieve. And I'll spell it out a little further with the goals when I get to that next slide. But this is a vision statement. It's not the statement that is on your website with your mission statement. This is totally different. This is what you envision happening through digital marketing this year.
Yeah.
And if you were listening to this in December, I'd still say, what does the next 12 months look like? Doesn't matter what time of year we're in. You should always have a vision of what you want to achieve. And that's the problem when we get to this next step, is that almost every single goal that people tell me is arbitrary. It's completely made up. And if your goals are made up, what is the probability you'll achieve them?
So true.
Single digits. So when I say this is what I mean. And I kind of alluded to this already was, okay, so you tell me you want to increase your sales by 15% this year. Okay, that seems like a very reasonable goal. And you might say, well, Chris, I looked on Google and it seems like 15% is pretty reasonable. I would agree. But how did you get to that number? Did you look at historical revenue numbers? Did you say, based on revenue, based on my new ad budget that I'm going to be doubling, and then based on the fact that I'm launching a podcast, I'm very confident in these tactics that one of the outcomes is going to be 15% more sales. Okay, I've got an affiliate program. Awesome. Great. Those are all good things. But if it's to sign 2 to 3 new clients a month, how many clients do you need a year? And what does that translate to revenue? And what does your historical revenue look like? But honestly, 2 goals is enough. Anything more gets to be a little unrealistic, and you dilute the potential of achieving those, because most of us are solopreneurs or very, very small businesses. We only need one or two because we can only be so focused on one thing and we're already not focused enough. But also make sure there's a reasoning behind the goal. It needs to be a SMART goal. So measurable, attainable, time. We have to have all these things kind of included in this SMART goal, but make sure it's based on historical data or it's not worth having. And I'm very sincere when I say that, because you got to be able to come to the conclusion. And if you put the data in, you'll say this either is or is not realistic. And there's no shame in growing by 4% or 2%. If that's what you've come to the conclusion, that's great. You have to start somewhere. Step number 4, which is what social media platform should I be on? You can't be on all of them because, like I said, you're going to end up diluting your efforts, which means you're decreasing the potential of being effective online. You don't want that. So pick 2 or 3. And the question really is, to me, it's more of, where are your prospective clients? Someone could make the case that they're on all these platforms. And I would probably agree with that to a certain degree. But you might find that you need to kind of scratch the surface on a new one. I've been spending a lot of time on Alignable. Alignable to me is probably 4-to-1 lead generator over LinkedIn. And the reason is because there's a lot less competition there. It's a lot easier to stand out. So that's kind of one place I'm spending a lot of time. I'm also putting a lot of time in my podcast where I can distribute that content onto LinkedIn and YouTube. So I'm trying some new things, as you should too. So every year it's, okay, if something's not working, cut bait and move on. Twitter. I know it's called X now. It's got a different logo, but I'm still calling it Twitter because I'm getting older. But I kind of like it from a personal standpoint, but from a business standpoint, I just don't have a lot of traction there. And that's okay. I could probably be doing things differently, but what is working? I've got 4 other platforms that are working really well for me. So that's where I'm going to focus my time. I'm not going to be caught up saying, well, what if I did this differently? It's not working. I tried it for a year and a half. I'm going to put my attention on the platforms that do generate a return on investment and the platforms that I feel like that's where my prospects are.
Very important point, Chris. Very important.
Now, the next one, step 5, is advertising budget. If you don't have an advertising budget, you are going to die a slow, painful social media marketing death. And I say that with all sincerity and love because organic reach today is dead. Now, if you don't know what that means, essentially, you're lucky if 3 or 4% of your followers even see your content. It's not an opinion. That is a cold, hard, published fact by many outlets. And what I'm saying, I'm not saying not to post organically anymore. I'm just saying there's other things you can do, like vertical video, like advertising. And if you're not willing to do those things, it's almost not worth doing at all, social media. And so $20 a day can be very effective. Even if it's once a month for a week, you have to advertise. And if you don't, you're not going to be in this pay to play platform very well. That's the only way you can get your content in front of new eyeballs, is to advertise or try some new tactics or try a new platform. And for me, that's been Alignable. But it is one of the most, if not the most effective forms of advertising in the world. Social media advertising, that is. You can boost a post in just a couple of seconds. It's super easy. And if you're doing it for an event like this, boy, could you generate a lot of leads and a lot of emails that you could also use. Email is probably the most effective form of digital marketing, by the way. Wish we had more time to talk about that. But as a pro tip, an ad budget can be as little as 2 or 3%. I mean, ideally 3 or 4% of your total revenue, if you're wondering kind of what to spend, and obviously spacing that out throughout the course of a year.
Oh, nice.
This is my template. You can reach out to me, send me your email, and I'm happy to share this with you. But this is also in the book. This is something you can create on your own. It's so simple and so easy. There's no excuse not to use this. If you're a big business, you might need something a little more robust, and that's fine. But if you don't have one, this is the place to start. Yeah. And it's putting in the mission statement. The voice is going to be your tone. We're going to be fun, funny. We're going to be edgy. We're going to be polished and corporate, depending on your business. But who are you going to be? And then you put your goals in there, indicate the platform, if it's platform agnostic or not, and then you track them from quarter to quarter. Put your posting frequency in. Put your budget in there. The social media platforms you're going to be on. When or how you're going to advertise. The reporting tools. And this will get you there. Yeah, it's very simple. It's kind of like one of those little smart cars, like little 2-person cars that are really tiny, really inexpensive. Well, guess what? Super cost effective, and they work just as well as any expensive car. Some people might look at them and say, well, why would you want that? Well, it works. It's a car, right? This same thing with this. It doesn't look flashy, fancy, and it's not. but it works just as good as those big ones, maybe better, because you don't get caught up in the minutia. So almost getting to the end here, so bear with me, but this is all for nothing. And I'm telling you, this will be a colossal waste of your time if you don't implement. Chris, like, what do you mean? Well, strategy means nothing. I've had documents that sit over here in my file cabinet and collect dust. And I've had some that I've even made for clients, and you follow up 6 months later only to find out they're not using it. It's frustrating, right? And I want you to be successful. I want you to have massive success and growth online. So we got to implement, which means this is all for nothing unless you block time and put it on your calendar. It could be a content calendar. It could be assigning roles and responsibilities within your team, and kind of varies from company to company. But let's talk about the first one, which is a content calendar. If you have time blocked on your calendar, and I do this a lot on Monday mornings, is I'll get to my office, I'll spend an hour, maybe 90 minutes, once or twice a month, just batching content, meaning I'm going into Canva, I'm editing some videos, I'm creating some posts, and then I take all that and I get it in my scheduling tool. A lot of people use Hootsuite or Asana. There's a lot of different good ones out there, and you just schedule it out. And it doesn't fully automate, but it automates to the point to where I don't have to be thinking about it every day. I don't have to be in the weeds. I can work on my business instead of in my business, which is the number one reason we get so distracted and bogged down. So it's about managing your time on your Google Calendar or whatever device you use, and then also investing in a tool. Because if I'm paying $20 a month, I'm much more inclined to use it than if I'm not, right? If it's a spreadsheet, it's like, oh, whatever. You forget about it once and then twice, and then all of a sudden you're not using it anymore. You need to have some skin in the game. And then as a bonus here, I'm going to suggest that you have to make vertical video. You have to be creating TikToks and Reels and things like that, YouTube Shorts, because otherwise, as I mentioned, traditional content in the newsfeed just isn't being shown to people half as much. So if you want to change your expectations and your goals, you have to change your behaviors and your content. This is a business that I own, a very small local party bike business. I won't bother explaining what that means. So I was tasked to speak on stage last fall about the power of vertical video. And I said, I'm going to use my business as guinea pig. So these are Instagram photo posts, and you can see they reach 67 people, 38 people, 31 people. Got about 900 followers roughly, and it's pretty pathetic. But I take a lot of pride. I really try to create good content and a good experience for my followers, but just that's kind of the nature of social media today. So I wanted to highlight that and use my business to pick on. And
I was just going to say the vertical videos, which I just dipped my toe into the water, but everything I hear is how important that is now.
Yeah, it's critical. So I went out and I created some videos using nothing but my phone. No fancy devices, no expensive camera, no lighting, no microphones, just my phone, standing on a street, capturing people riding this party bike. And this is exclusive to Instagram. It's just a one platform comparison so I could show people. And this would basically be the same on Facebook as well. Well, those two videos, first one had 8,300 plus views. The second one had 1,200 plus. The engagements were north of 200 and north of 28. Now, neither is technically viral, but they're viral for me and the size audience I have. That is by far the best performing post I've ever had. And normally I would have to pay $100 in advertising to boost a post to even get close to 8,000 views. Think about that. I'd have to pay north of $100 in boosted posts to get to 8,000 plus people, especially any kind of engagement like that, probably even more. So if you're saying, okay, I got the point, Chris. Well, let's actually quantify this for you for a moment. And let's show you specifically 8,000% better reach and 2,000+% better engagement. So what the hell are we doing bashing our head against the wall, thinking that a graphic design post in Canva, a mediocre piece of content that I spent 10 minutes on is even worth our time or is even going to move the needle with our followers? Because it's not, because they're not even going to show it to people, which is kind of what's the point. I mean, we still have to do it a little bit because our potential buyers might be finding us online, but let's reallocate 3/4 of that time and put it into video. Don't spend more time. I mean, you should if you have time, but if you don't, just reallocate the time. Make one video a week. We have to change our behaviors if we're going to change our expectations, which means different kinds of content. This is my last slide, which is really all about tactics. And if you're looking for some quick hitting ideas, in addition, These are some of the daily behaviors and weekly behaviors you're going to have to practice to really elevate your digital marketing game. And it's about connecting with people, because social media specifically is just like a networking event. You show up to a local chamber event and you're expecting to get anything in return, you have to talk to people, probably 20 to make it worth your while. Then you have to follow up with people. Say, hey, nice to meet you. If you ever want to get together, have lunch, have coffee, I'd love to get to know you. So you're DMing some people. You're cultivating relationships, because sales is what? Sales is based on relationships. Online sales, in-person sales, it's know, like, and trust factor. Schedule some virtual meetings, just 1 or 2 a week. Just get to know people. 15 minutes is good. You have to engage, because engagement is reciprocal. So you have to engage with other people's content. Otherwise, why would you expect random people you don't know to engage with crappy content? You shouldn't. You have to build on more than one platform. So if you're just on LinkedIn or just on Facebook, there is a conversation in this country about TikTok being banned. Like it or not, we're not going to get into that. But what about all those people who have a massive audience on only that platform?
Yeah.
If that happens, you're gone. You're invisible. So you have to be visible on multiple platforms. Also, try to become a guest on podcasts. I was on 25 plus last year, and I think 7 or 8 virtual events. And it helps me be visible and cultivate some engagement and some relationships. And just get in front of the camera, turn it on and start recording, be vulnerable, connect with people, be real, tell your story. That is the stuff that people want. They don't want the promotional crap. They don't want anything about, how long you've been in business for. They want you. They want to be educated and they want to be entertained. So give the people what they want. And I've got one little last call to action, and then I'm going to open up some Q&A. Hopefully everything's been valuable. If what you heard today is good, if I sound interesting, happy to share my link to the book again. But this is what I do now. I shut down my marketing business and I moved into coaching, because that's what fills my cup. Is I feel like for you to be effective in marketing, you need to be educated. You need to be empowered, and you need to be inspired. And honestly, I don't help people by doing things for them, just like my kids. I have to empower them to do the thing. And so I created a weekly coaching program. It's basically a weekly call where I bring in the best marketers in the world, and we talk about subjects from email marketing to social media, SEO, everything, how to use AI in your marketing. And we give you everything. So marketing doesn't have to be like finding a needle in a haystack, which spending an hour on a YouTube video only to be disappointed. We give it to you. It's $59 a month. If you're interested, you can find it on my website. But I just wanted to share that, 'cause it starts next week.
That's very low. Very low cost for that.
Thank you. And that's it. I have a new email address, so I have to update that, but I can put that in the chat, and all the other contact information is up to date.
And Chris, hold on just a second. I just lost it. I was going to ask you about your free gift, the audit. Was that?
Yeah. So you can either send me an email, or you can go to my personal website, which is iamchrisburns.com. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And there's a link at the top, which is book me. And there is a free 15-minute audit. Normally, I charge close to $100 for something like that. And no sales pitch, no nothing. It's just an opportunity to ask any questions you want, or have me give you my opinion on what your marketing looks like.
That is so valuable, Chris. I can't say enough about it. So hold on, I just have to check. So if I were to ask you, and this is kind of an unfair question, but if I were to ask you, what's one thing, if we could only do one thing today, what would you say? Well,
I'd probably give you 1 of 2 answers. I would say go and audit yourself, because that kind of puts you at ground zero. And a lot of times when you go through the audit, you probably need a little more insight on how to do that really effectively, but you're going to discover the answers yourself, kind of like almost like a therapy session. You're going to say, we woulda, coulda, shoulda on some things, or like, oh, this is actually really good. We could improve this for sure. And I like that, because you got to hear the truth before you know where you're going to go. This is really the first step of like planning a vacation. It's like, okay, we want to go to Florida. Okay, well, where are we going? And what are we going to do during the week while we're there? You don't just go on vacation. And some people sit on a beach for 7 days, but most actually do fun stuff. This is a big part of that. It's creating that itinerary for what you're going to do. If that's maybe not of interest to you, I still would implore you to do that. I would say that I want you to start creating vertical video. And I want you to get past all these questions that everyone asks me. Well, how long, or what platform, or what about the thumbnail, or what about the trending music, or this and that? Just create a video. Find something you're passionate and knowledge about and just hit record. Try to make it short, like 2 minutes or less, and post it. Just like my podcast, I go back to the first episode and it's like cringe-worthy for me. I'm like, oh, I really say that? Is that how I sounded? And then I go back to episode 10 and I was like, oh, that was marginally better. And then I listened to the more recent ones and I'm like thinking, oh, we're actually pretty good. We're not great. I'm not Joe Rogan or wherever you think is maybe really good, but the more at bats you get, the better you get. And if you kind of start with that mentality, you really won't have any hesitation. So I say the vertical video because that's probably the most effective means of using your time. But in order for those to be more effective, I would rather you go back and start with the audit and then do the video. So I could give you, you could almost choose anything from this workshop, but a lot of it comes back to the foundation, because I've seen some organizations who have really, really good marketing, but it doesn't generate results. And you say, well, Chris, how could that be? Well, if it's not tied to what your customers want or where your business wants to go, it's all for nothing.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of hard for people to connect, but I say this: it doesn't matter what you think about your content. I've created some videos I thought were going to crush it, and those are the videos that have always performed the worst. Guess why? I'm not my target audience. No one cares what I think. It's what my clients think or my prospective clients.
Yeah. Folks, Chris has just been amazing with all of this stuff. He will be featured in the app, so you'll be able to get, the content there. And I definitely, Chris, want you to come back on my show, because that would be terrific. So thank you, Chris. Much obliged.
My pleasure.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Don't
And
hesitate
don't
to reach
forget to
out.
buy Chris's book. Don't forget the book. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'll throw the link. I'll give you the link.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Chris.